Welcome back, everybody, to another Tech Talks. As always, I'm Chris, my co-host Christian,
Hey
and
there.
we're going to riff on a couple hot topics from this week. Christian, what's up, man? How's it going?
Yeah, good so far. It's nice to be back again, like being able to use the title of the show again. Like we never actually used it before on the
Huh.
first one. We were so unsure whether this would be an official thing. Like if anyone
Right.
can notice the title, it's still a question mark. But now we can proudly come out and say we're Tech Talks again. So
Yeah.
it's officially back, everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay during our unofficial absence. So yeah, so a lot of things happened over this week. A lot of interesting stuff. Like for our first topic, as anticipation builds for Samsung's rumored July launch of the Galaxy Z Fold 6, leaks are shedding light on the exciting updates to expect. While not a groundbreaking overhaul compared to its predecessors, the leaks claim that the Fold 6 promises a host of enhancements to distinguish itself in the market. Now, being this is a leak and all, I don't have a question regarding this at the moment, but do want to open a discussion when it comes to the upgrades of phones nowadays. Like my question for you at the moment, Chris, is during the course of the times being an owner of a mobile phone, have you noticed any changes? Do all phones all look the same to you at our age, right?
A big thing for me is weight. I personally like a heavy phone.
Yeah, same thing here. I don't know why. It just feels that you're holding something that's real.
Right. I mean, it's the same with a watch, right? Like I don't want a light ass watch and I don't want a light ass cell phone.
Yeah, and it feels it weight sometimes for some people. I think it's synonymous with being premium at one
Yeah.
point. Has that thing changed?
It maybe has. Maybe that's the older school of thinking. If it's heavy, it must be quality. Um, but as far as that one, I think I remember that it's going to be thinner, but the battery's going to be larger. Supposedly, maybe.
Yeah, for in terms of the leak, it's gonna be a bit slimmer. Like it's 11 millimeters when folded. That is pretty slim for a phone, especially on the folded side. And the battery is going to be 4,600 milliampere per hour, milliampere hour battery.
Mm.
So it seems like Samsung is really prioritizing longevity on this one if the leak is actually true.
But do
Then
you,
again,
do you
we don't
remember like
know.
what was it? I remember. I think my first iPhone was like the iPhone 4 or something.
Yeah, those things
Those
don't last that.
phones, those phones were small.
It's the size of what? Slightly bigger than a GoPro, you think?
Yeah, I mean it's like this big. It was. I don't know what the dimensions of it
I
were.
think it's 4 inches. And the size.
Yeah, it's really
I have the first version of the four. So
small
it's
compared to the phones today. This is a 21 series, Galaxy 21 series, and I feel like it's a good size. Like any larger. So when I was shopping for a new phone, I actually looked at the first iteration of the Fold and the Flip. Was it Z? What's the Flip? Like the Flip and the Fold, right? They had
yeah, the
two of them.
phone.
Yeah. And my issue with the Fold was when you fold it, it's like the size of a television remote.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not thick, it's not wide like this. And then when you open it, it's an oddly sized tablet.
Yeah, I think the
Like,
purpose they have for that was just you having enough screen space. Like if you're gonna be viewing something, let's say you want to watch Netflix on your phone, then doing a bit of reading. Like people are so into multitasking right now when it comes to their gadgets. Like makes it look like it's a necessity, but you could probably live without it. That's my
right.
thing with these new phones. Like that's why I asked you Have you noticed any significant difference, unless I tell you the specs?
No. And camera quality is unfortunately lost on me because I don't take many, you know, if there was such thing as screenshot quality, maybe that would catch my attention. I do a lot of screenshots. I don't do many pictures and videos. That's not really my thing, never have. So,
And I figured you wouldn't use a phone to actually something like do this podcast with it, right?
right. I mean, it
Like
could be done.
it could be done. Like I did a review, I think a couple of weeks ago on a phone that I used the phone's camera to actually do a talking segment. Like, it actually is feasible, and it is a much cheaper way rather than buying a DSLR, or any of the Canon series, and buying kit lenses. But if I was just someone who's just a normal dude who just wants a phone, I couldn't bother to see the differences in the camera stuff, just to be honest.
Yeah, no, like I was really happy with the camera, at first because it is really it's got like 100 times zoom or something. And this is the 21 series. This is 3 or 4 years old. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, I guess that goes into like kind of this discussion, like maybe there are people out there that they want to upgrade their phone like every year. You want the newest, the best. For me, I mean, I use mine for emails, delivery, keeping up with family, really, and the occasional. I don't even really watch Netflix or YouTube on my phone anymore. Like it's just I don't need much from a phone. I just need it to be the screen quality
Yeah,
is
that's a good bonus. Like the screen quality is something that it's actually visible to you, but just holding the phone and seeing the differences right from the touch, it's a much different.
internally. Internally, not really. UI UX. I'm big on the UI UX
Yeah,
of
the
uh,
same here.
of any type of thing. Like I actually switched a couple years ago. I did a temporary switch from MacBook to I think it was an HP.
Yeah,
My trusty MacBook that I had for shoot, I don't even know, 10 or 11 years. Um, just kicked the bucket, right? It had done it served me well, and it's retired now. It's
it lived a good life.
it really did. It definitely earned its keep. And at the time, I was like, you know what? Because I hadn't used really any other type of laptop or whatever for that long, for a decade or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to save a little money. Um, I'm not using it as much as I was in my previous work. Um, so I'm going to go with a cheaper unit. And I went and I got a really nice HP.
Yeah,
Bro, when I say it was like going from a Ferrari to a bicycle, I used it for maybe 2 days and I was like, no, I cannot. Like it was the MacBook, click, open, click, open, click, open. HP, click, open. That little 1 second, 1.5 seconds is nightmarish when you're working and like trying to, you're busy, like and it's that pause, couldn't deal with it, man.
yeah. I remember like I did open this topic. Like, remember the Nokia phones on what sets them apart?
Mm.
The different shapes and different user interfaces when it comes to the buttons. Like, I think that thing when it comes to style is lost. I see phones right now as just looking at like the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Like, if I'm not more in tune with what the spec of the phone is, that I think that's the reason why I haven't been this excited with a phone for quite some time now.
Hmm.
It's because I see them all as the same thing. And for me, in terms of the purpose of the phone, like, you have different types of tools or gadgets that actually do what a phone does. So they actually already exist. So I feel there's no reason to cramp all of these things that would entail the need for all the processor power
Right.
that the new phones are actually getting. I feel like the phone is just being improved for the sake of just being improved.
Well, it's technology advancing just for the sake of technology advancing. But now I
And
will say, like,
like I do hope these leaks would actually get me excited at some point because I was an Apple user before, and every
yeah,
leak I remember the leak of the iPhone 4 that was a big deal back then because leaks coming from Apple weren't actually that prevalent back. They were very guarded when it comes to their products.
right.
Like that leak, I think led to a couple of lawsuits, right? I think it was Gizmodo that actually someone from Gizmodo actually leaked the iPhone 4 specs where there was no antenna in
Mm,
the board. It was actually soon revealed by Steve Jobs that the antenna was the band encapsulating the entire phone. So back then you could get excited for the phone because aside from the what iPhone 3GS before the 4,
mm,
something like a major leak like this would be a big deal to me. Like other companies doesn't actually come close to the products that they're showing off. Samsung, I think, was among those that produces smartphones back then. And at least their units actually show a bit more diversity when it comes to their design. But now everything just looks the same to me.
yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about right now, as far as smartphones and everything goes, is the generative AI integration. I think the new Galaxy actually has it's AI enhanced
Is
or integrated.
is it
Yeah.
is the AI run by Google?
Who is
What is the name of Google's AI?
Bard?
Bard. Is it Bard?
Is it still Bard or did they rebrand?
Gemini. I think it's Gemini.
Or is it? Yeah, I think they did rebrand to Gemini. I think you're right.
Yeah, they
Uh,
need to rebrand Bard. It sucks as a name.
it's S24 Plus.
Yeah, so in terms of the specs, like the screen is actually pretty impressive if you think about it. Like a folding phone. You've looked at some, right?
Yeah,
I see the one that you're saying is the flip one. I look at that like a burger when it's closed. You see
yeah,
one as a remote, right? I see the other one as a burger.
yeah. It's not something. The flip is to
Burger
me,
bun.
yeah. And the whole design of the flip, it's nostalgic at best. It's not very
It's weird that it's
practical.
nostalgic from a different brand, right? I think you're thinking about Motorola.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Well, I had a
Are they
razor.
still here?
I had a razor for a long time, and then I had a sliver. Motorola came out with a sliver, which was also a very small, thin phone, and I really that's kind of where I shifted from wanting a flip phone. I was like, it's much better. The flip phones are nice. You got the action and like you can actually hang it up. You don't have fucking bullshit and you can hang it up. But once I got the sliver, I was like, I'll never own another flip phone. Like, there's no point. It's like the less working parts, the better.
Yeah. And I think any phone has an issue when it comes to it has a band, right? That actually connects the board to the
Yeah,
screen. I don't know how they do it now with these new models, but at least they have a band that connects it to the board. And those things usually wear out with you
yeah,
constantly opening and closing it. I think that's why there's an option that you can actually use it closed. Like I think the Fold actually has three screens, right?
the fold. Yeah,
Does it have three screens, right? The one when you open it and the one when you close it.
yeah,
They have a contingency that you can actually use it. Before there wasn't, right? It was just when you opened it.
right. Well, yeah, but it's such an odd shape in both iterations, right? Either you open it and it's oddly shaped, and then when you for me like because I would use it 90% of the time I would use it closed, and it's just not a good feel and look closed.
Well, if you're completely comfortable holding a remote, which is
Yeah,
basically the same, but not necessarily you feeling that you're holding a phone because I think it's gonna be thinner. Is it any thinner? than a regular
It
phone.
was, it was still kind of like it was still kind of just an odd like the hand feel for me. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, and the main reason why I brought up this topic is, like I said, every phone actually looks the same, but having a different form factor, like a folding phone, flip phone, is actually pretty different now. Like I think everyone is actually going this route.
I think
It,
it's
it-
the new. It's just the new fandangled thing. Like, oh, I have this phone. It's like eventually it's gonna be like, yeah,
like in terms of the specs for this, like I said, I don't subscribe to the fact that every new model I should get. Like I think there are people, and God bless you if you are like this, that with every new iPhone you should get the new one, because the iPhone suddenly devalues once a new one comes in.
mhm.
But for me, maybe I could get excited for this one because this is not a typical thing, this form factor. Like we
Well,
did
I mean,
mention,
it's new. It's exciting. You
like
know,
you
of
can hear the
course.
excitement in our voices right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, absolutely. Like if I mean, if I get, and maybe it's a reflection of my maturity or lack thereof. I don't know which one you want to call it. But like, I'm happy with my phone. You know, I like it. It works. It does everything I need it to do. Would I like to upgrade to the AI, to the Galaxy AI? Probably. Yeah, I would like to. Do I find it necessary? No, not at all.
Is our phones suddenly falling out of fashion now? Because I don't see enough hype marketing regarding it.
I don't know. You ask my 16-year-old daughter, they are not falling out of fashion.
Really?
Yeah, I just got her an iPhone a couple weeks ago, and she's as happy as a pig in shit. Like she's as happy with a cell phone as she could have been with anything in the world.
I think it's just our generation that actually went through the changes, and this is her generation that's actually the norm for them
Yeah,
in a sense.
yeah, we're
Like the main
kind of
phone for me is still actually just calling and texting.
yeah. I mean, I use mine for work, primarily for work. Yeah, and keeping up with family. That's really about the extent of my. And this phone, even though it is, it's got AR, it's got. I have a stylus here somewhere for it. Like there's a million different things I can do with this phone, and honestly, I probably use less than 2% of its capabilities.
Yeah, this new thing is gonna be housing what, a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 with a Gen 3 chipset. Like, what apps are you going to be running on it that needs it?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're doing like hardcore like video content and stuff, I don't see a need for a lot of that stuff. Or like if if you're app poor, like you would need an app for everything, then yeah, maybe. Or you store a bunch of notes. I know some people like to store notes. I'm not really a big note store, voice notes and all that stuff. I don't really do that shit. So videos and pictures. Honestly, I could probably use a Nokia from 1998 and be just as happy.
Yeah, those things are super heavy duty, right? You can actually hammer a nail with it.
Yeah.
And it was still like, judging from the Philippines, we've been so nostalgic when it comes to the Nokia. Like, I think
I think Nokia still has a line where they focus more on durability than UI UX.
I think they tried to recreate a couple of their models before that were prevalent back in the 2000s. Like the 3310, they have a new version of it with a touchscreen. Like, it's a nice notion though that they're bringing up nostalgia.
Yeah.
But then again, when it comes to marketing, I think pretty much either Apple or Samsung, have eaten the market, or a lion's share of it right now for them to even compete. But I do hope we get to the point where there is some individuality again when it comes to these phones, because I can't
Well,
actually get excited for something that I've seen before.
I'm still waiting and hoping and looking for the hologram phones. You know what I mean? Like, you got your Apple Watch, or you can just shoot the or shoot the hologram out, and then it's like, or I seen a thing years ago where uh, iPhone was supposed to have this hologram keyboard. So when you
Yeah,
turn it like landscape, and then it shoots the keyboard out onto the table.
I kind of remember that. Whatever happened to it?
I don't know.
Never, never came
I
to
think it was a
fruition.
bullshit leak, but yeah, I'm
What?
still working on that shit. Bro, I remember when I was a kid, man, there was this, and I don't know if any of our viewers remember this. I don't know if you had it here in PI or not, but I was a kid and it was at the movie theater. They had when I say a kid, I was like maybe 10 years old or something. So it was this early 90s. There was a hologram fighting game. I
Yeah,
remember that.
I remember that in the arcade.
Yeah, it was a hologram, and
It
you
was
could
really
fight.
dim,
It was very dim,
right?
but that was 92 to
Yeah, somewhere between 92
30
and
years.
90.
That's 30 years ago.
That was present back then. And we
Yeah.
did discuss this on a previous episode of our Tech Talks before when Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were in an interview. One of Bill Gates' proposal for a new form factor was actually a parchment that you can actually roll. Eh, like you did make a joke regarding face checking your Facebook on that parchment.
Yeah.
Are we nearing that tech right now? Like if you can only see this thing,
Hmm.
I doubt you can guess what type of brand this is,
Right. No,
right?
no idea.
So it's a weird thing now, but people are getting hyped for this phone, and all more power to them. I believe this would be a powerful phone. It's just hard for me to get excited over it. But to those that actually subscribe to it, well, here you are. This might be your next year's phone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you like this type shit, or if it's a hobby, man, there's nothing wrong with having a hobby of just collecting the latest tech.
Yeah, there are one thing to point out, like there are they think the phone would be addressing a consumer's concern. Like one of the most significant improvements rumored for the Fold 6 is the expansion of the cover screen. Like I wasn't aware that that was a complaint before, but those that actually are concerned about this issue, well, here you go. They're going to be addressing it based from the leaks. So might be a bit of good news coming your way to those that are interested in the new Samsung.
I mean, I guess what I take from this most is because Apple had the smartphone market cornered, right? Like it became even, it's when it didn't become, it still is it's a it's a status symbol, right? Like to have an iPhone, or especially if you have the latest iPhone. Like in some groups, that puts you almost in an alpha position if you have, if you can afford the most recent tech. So it's nice to see someone like Samsung, like, okay, y'all have this part, right? Now we're gonna do something else over here to see if we can kind of,
Yeah,
unless you're like me, your skepticism runs through your blood, or cynicism, which is probably the reason I don't have an iPhone. It's just like I don't want everyone has an iPhone.
yeah. There's not no skepticism on my part regarding whether this is going to be a good phone or not, or an improvement on the next. My thing in this is usually I am excited when it comes to new tech,
Hmm.
but I have been desensitized if everything that I see is just clear black screen when I go to the store,
Right.
right? Unless you face it away, for me like this, I wouldn't even know what type of phone it is,
Yeah.
right? There's
Yeah.
glare there.
Nowadays.
Can't even see the brand because of the glare.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
That's how people know, right? Like is the back of the phone. Like, you never see anybody look at someone's phone and be like, oh, what kind? It's always like they do one of these.
But then,
Oh,
if you think
that.
about it in terms of marketing, that's quite ingenious because the back is actually being used as a billboard for the brand.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
when you're holding it and people are seeing it, like
yeah.
that's a good use of advertising space.
It is. It is. Like, and I keep mine covered, but I have to keep mine covered because of the the design flaw. That, well, what I consider a design flaw for this Galaxy is the man, this shit dirty as hell. The uneven back.
Yeah,
It's lifted. Right? It's not on this side, right? But you can see like it's got this lip to it, and it's terrible.
I think they're designing phone now to not have that lift
Yeah,
anymore.
I think that the new one doesn't have it because people were like, "This is fucking stupid." I mean,
Like
if you just buy,
mine,
yeah,
mine also has that camera bump. Like it
yeah,
doesn't make sense that the most sensitive part of your phone is gonna be the camera lenses, and it's actually pretty exposed if you set it down. You're not
right,
gonna be
right.
facing it downwards if you're gonna be setting your phone down, right? Or just to protect the lens. Then
Yeah.
again, the screen is gonna be damaged.
I don't know. I tend to lay mine face down.
You do?
Yeah.
Really?
Weird.
Sometimes I just do that just to not see the notifications. But then that's the dummy that doesn't actually just turn notifications off.
I think I do a lot of times lay mine face down because yeah, if you pick it up, then it's backwards. So if you lay it face down, there you go. Then when you pick it up, there it is.
I think my habit is picking up with my left hand and transferring it to my right.
Oh, baby. All right. So all right. Let's see. We've killed about a half hour on that one. What's up on the next one?
For our next topic, the US Supreme Court is deliberating on the future of two state laws that restrict how social media platforms moderate content. During oral arguments on Monday, the justices engaged in a challenging discussion tackling the questions that have the potential to reshape the internet landscape, affecting not only major social networks such as Facebook and TikTok, but also platforms like Yelp and Etsy. Chris, do you agree that laws should be passed to police the choices of these social media platforms? And at what point does this become a form of censorship?
Uh, Such a difficult thing and I understand why more things haven't been done as of now. Um, because it's the whole misinformation, disinformation thing. Like you don't know where this information's coming from, and it's hard to police everything, but it's also incredibly irresponsible to not attempt to police anything, right? So it's a very blurry line between, um, like for me, like as far as politicians go, um, I feel like there has to be some way to distinguish between information that's coming from the politician directly and maybe what would you imagine would be like, a troll farm or, one of
Yeah,
those.
this actually is a weird concept for me. Like, say the thing that we're actually doing right now, like providing opinions over this podcast. Would it be any different than someone on a network television show actually giving out opinions? Because everyone knows that these networks have their own biases when it comes to their
Well,
politics, their beliefs. Like,
I mean, if
would
we're
it
going to
be
talk
any
about politics and censorship and people talking about it on TV, we have to address the fact that all the censorship only goes one way.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want about this side
Yeah.
as someone coming from, one side, but you can't say anything about the side that you're coming from, right? Because then all of a sudden the advertisers are pissed off and the jackasses on Twitter are pissed off and You know, it's you can't have a healthy meal at home because now mom and dad's pissed off. Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like in terms of the entire freedom of speech thing, like entire freedom of speech thing is actually pretty much a lie because everyone has their own opinion regarding it. Like it's your own perception what you can say and whether people will be hurt by it. And if it leads to a crime, it's not that actually good. Like there are nuances to it. But when it comes to the freedom of speech, like if we're gonna be doing this for social media, we might as well be doing it for network television also.
Well, I think we, and when I say we, I mean most people. Like free speech is an inherent right that America is one of the few countries that actually like has total freedom of speech. Right? There's countries where you do not have the freedom of speech. Like you just
Yeah.
don't. Um, so I think, and I can only speak for myself. I think we have the freedom of speech. We don't have the freedom of opinion.
Yeah, and I think another factor for that, and I'm glad you brought up the freedom of opinion. This is the first time in a couple of decades or even centuries that this amount of opinion is being heard by a lot of people.
Never. This is brand new to the
Right.
global society.
So I do understand, like I do agree that the laws created when it comes to let's just get freedom of speech out of the way for now. Even the laws for the internet back then was created, I feel really is antiquated for what was the result of the social media age, where people are actually more connected now and more able to express their thoughts. Like whether you like it or not, you're gonna hear about what your neighbor's dinner is. So,
Yeah,
right?
I see it.
The question is it is it gonna fall under the education of someone to actually be discerning of these type of things on social media? And I do understand that we're discussing regarding the policing of the social media platforms it, but do are we actually removing the responsibility of those that are actually viewing these opinions online when it comes to believing the shit that's happening?
Well, I mean, I think like anything else, education is the key, right? Like, I mean, you could go as far as to argue, driving cars is dangerous. You have, millions of people on the road every day driving these legalized rockets, basically. What keeps you from getting in a car and driving as hard and as fast as you can into, another car, right? First, because obviously most people aren't psychopathic, but second is, it's education, right? Like you know how to drive a car safely. There's
Yeah,
there's rules and there's standards and you have to get licensed and you have to get trained and your family has to trust you even in the beginning at 14, 15, whenever you start learning to drive. Like it takes an incredible amount of trust from just your family members to say, okay, I will put you in control of this death machine, right?
yeah,
And it's the same with, we have the argument about the Second Amendment in the US, the right to bear arms. It's the same, it's education. You have to teach people the proper way to use these things. And social media is no different.
yeah,
Teach your kids how to use it. Don't believe everything you read. Don't post your butthole if you don't want the whole school to see your butthole. Like you have to teach kids this stuff, or then it's just going to be mayhem, like a bunch of unknowing, unlicensed drivers on the road.
like I think in terms of the internet, like the main problem with these social media posts providing opinions, providing news, I think a lot of people throughout the years have been programmed to subscribe. You know the term argumentum ad numerum?
No, is that
Like
Latin?
if it's the greatest majority, it should be true. Like eat shit, a billion flies couldn't be wrong that it's delicious.
Right.
So I think that thing has been prevalent over the past couple of being programmed by social media to see what people perceive as the vast majority, when in actuality it's actually just a minority that's actually speaking these things, I think counters the education that you want to provide them. Because we're all set in this mindset that the majority always wins.
Hmm.
So I think that's one part of it. And my question to you though is, do you think the proposal uh, by the Senate would actually pass for this? Or there's just so much nuance that it's gonna be hard to actually get a handle of this. Remove the advertisers for this type of thing. Is there any way to actually at least
Be
get a bit of
proactive.
be proactive about this? Like the
Uh,
election, as an example, the elections are coming up there. Like imagine the type of information that will be coming out of social media over the next couple of months.
well,
The year of
yeah,
November comes.
I don't know. I mean, I imagine eventually they'll get a handle on it. Um, and be able to. The problem with laws is ambiguity is not acceptable in a law, right? It has to be clear and concise. And the way social media, like they're trying to apply real world laws and rules to a world that's not even a real world. This is virtual space. Like the
Yeah,
things that happen and the things that can be created and the things that can come about outside of what we already imagine being possible. You look at a lot of the look at cell phones. 100 years ago.
yeah,
If you would have asked somebody in 1924, would you think that there would be this thing? It would seem impossible.
yeah. It
You
was
know,
something from Star Trek that you wouldn't think
Star
would.
Trek, some of the best imaginations, right? Open, just go, imagine whatever you can. They didn't even come up with smartphones and internet.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
think
Like,
they have the smartphones back then,
well, they had
but
like
not to this degree that we
but I
have
mean,
now.
you still had fucking Spock and Data there with you, like the know-it-alls, like Spock, the temperature of the moon or whatever the fuck. Now I can just search that shit. Like Kirk could do everything with that group of people that he had by himself now, and they never imagined it. So to try to police a virtual world with real world rules and laws,
That's a weird thing for me. Like in terms of the new technology thing, like this, including social media, like social media's rendered a lot of things obsolete, and I think one of them is actually just common sense.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't remember what senator said it. Probably John Kennedy from Louisiana, I think. One of those southern,
In his
uh,
beautiful voice.
one of those southern politicians. He nailed it when he said, that social media and the internet has lowered the cost of being an asshole.
Yeah,
Like
I
now,
think that is true right now. Like, yeah, the barrier of entry for finding someone like you is actually pretty slim now. It
yeah,
can actually be achieved. Like in terms of, yeah, let's get back to the meat of the matter. Like, main reason for this is actually them looking at uh conservative uh information or conservative ideas being filtered from social media platforms. I gave the example of network television. Like we do have network television with their biases. Like how is this any more different on how network TV conducts their business versus how Facebook and allegedly leans more to the left? That's why I made this comparison. Like how is this any different since both are actually it wasn't supposed to be this way, but it turns out network TV news turned into a business at some point.
well, I
Like
mean, I think
I understand the US structure when it comes to your news back then was network TV shouldn't have advertising in it. It's actually a public service that
yeah,
is actually subsidized by the government, like suddenly taking in advertisers that they have to bow to. for the sake of money. It should be free service.
I mean,
But
and
then,
that's the
but I
root of the
digress.
problem. That's the root. You're right though. You're absolutely correct. That's the root of the problem. Um, it's just that the amount of advertising that Facebook has is in, enormously huge, right? Like it's really, really, you know, amazing how much advertising they get. Whereas, you know, a show on, let's say NBC, right? You're going to have what, three, four, five, six, maybe you're going to have a network advertisers, and you're going to have advertisers that sponsor, you know, a certain segment.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't kowtow to the advertisers on television, then they pull their shit. Um, you know, it's a problem for the network, right? Because you know,
Yeah.
but like with Facebook, you know, it's going to be difficult to get. You know, if a sponsor pulls or something like it can really, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's much more dramatic, I think, in the social media realm than it is in the television realm,
But if we're
right?
gonna be judging that based, we're gonna be judging it based on degree, right? If we're gonna be judging based on the amount of advertisers they have, that doesn't actually still diminish the fact that biases actually still exist. Like it wouldn't actually factor in if there are 20 advertisers for the right and 100 advertisers for the left. There's still bias in it.
Right.
Like people who subscribe to the right will only be going to the right. And people who subscribe to the left wing side of things will only be looking at left wing opinions in media.
But
Like
I think another problem is the human aspect of moderation.
there is
Like,
that also.
like how many, and I don't mean to simplify this down to, you know, conservatives being good old boys and, you know, the liberals or whatever being, you know, the hippies, let's say, right? I mean, if we could do it like that, right? We could say the good old boys versus the hippies. The good old boys, not really into tech, not into the tech industry,
Yeah,
right?
I can understand that.
The liberals are more college, you know, we're hardworking, blue collar. The liberals, oh, we're, you know, college educated. We care about the whole world.
And we're not actually typecasting here. Like everyone knows that there are right-wing social media platforms like Parler. What was it the other one? The Truth
They don't do
Social.
for sure. No, they don't do well because corporate America is liberal.
Yeah, and how much? I don't know the exact data on the percentage when it comes to the division between the left and the right there in the US when it comes to political leaning. So I don't have the exact demographic when it comes to
It's
who
pretty,
subscribes to who.
pretty
Like
close, actually, I think.
it's pretty close, right? It's down the middle. Like
I think it's really close. I think in reality, it's really close. Online, it's very much left leaning because those fucking losers don't have nothing better to do than to,
again, we're not trying to stereotype here.
but I'm
But
just saying, no, like, who do you know has time to protest at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday? Like, most people, I feel like, need to be at work. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like, this is kind of where the divide comes, you know. The people that are the loudest probably are not the busiest. If you're on Twitter or whatever, bitching and moaning about every little thing, you probably aren't earning a living or spending time with your family or, you know, going on dates with your husband or your wife. Like, these probably aren't things that you're doing if you're on social media bitching and moaning about everything.
yeah. Man, I think like one of the bill is like Florida Senate Bill 7072 prevents social media platforms from imposing limitations on political candidates. This is gonna be this is gonna be something that would impact the upcoming elections if this is
Hmm.
actually passed pretty quickly. And I don't know the turnaround time when it comes to passing bills in the US. Like we're not doing that pretty well here in our country, but I can understand that this is gonna drag on for quite some time now. I'm hard pressed to think that this would be resolved before the election.
Oh yeah, probably not before the election. I think this is also placing more responsibility on, like I was saying, the human side of these social media companies, like what Elon Musk exposed at Twitter. Like you find he found like I don't I seen this video or something where he found like a whole storage room or something full of like uh pro woke like t-shirts or something. It's like be woke or something. It's like the place was basically ran by people from one side of the discussion. And that's what I think this bill is trying to eliminate. Like you can believe what you want to believe. Sure. Vote for who you want to vote. It should be like it was 20 years ago. Vote for who you want to vote for, believe what you want to believe. Honestly, I don't need to know. And you shouldn't try to stifle my voice because we disagree. Like that's not what America is. And I say America because most of these social media things come out of America. So you know,
It could come out of America, but Facebook is a worldwide thing. Like opinions can come from an island in Greece for for all I know, and people who are liberal of the same woke mind per
I
se,
mean,
but still subscribe to it. Like it doesn't matter where you come from, even if you're in the US. If someone across the globe actually has the same belief and idea as you, it would still resound with you, whether you know him personally or not.
I mean,
That
imagine here, right? If or not even just here, but imagine in any other country. Let's say Korea, for example, right? South Korea. Um, if there's obviously a way to make all the information that they see on Instagram or on social media lean one way or another. Either make someone look good at the same time as make their opponent look bad, right? This and social media, everybody's on it all the time. It's incredibly powerful. I think
that's
we
why
have to.
I think this thing would have a hard time passing.
I think it's a but it may not pass.
The
But it's a
penalties might be imposed, but I don't think many changes will be made.
but it's a necessary step toward what needs to be done. Social media is still a baby, man. It's been around for 15 minutes. Like the government is full of old people that probably don't even. I mean, they hire people to run their social media. Like eventually, like okay, so basically, what it's going to be, I feel like, is this bill has to crawl so that the bill that actually solves this issue can run. But it's a nice first attempt, right? It's like, okay, we're going to do this. Ah, that didn't work. Okay, we're going to do this. Oh, that did. Eventually, they'll figure it out. But until then, we just have to be educated, and it's kind of an oxymoron to say, uh, you should be educated when a lot of what we know comes from social media. So, like, how are you educating yourself? Nobody goes to the library.
Yeah, throughout history, a lot of countries have been destabilized by a bunch of weapons, much of new tech. Who would have thought that an entire superpower would be destabilized by a screen?
Well, it's propaganda, which has been effective for a long time.
I think there's really a lot of nuances with this one. That's why I think it would have a hard time passing. Like, in terms of definition of bias, would that would in terms of Facebook leaning more to moderate the content for the left, would that in any way be an issue if another right-wing platform, say Parler, also did the same thing? Something like this.
Exposure, level of exposure is one, but
I think that's the thing.
I think maybe now, especially after the last election, And really, after Trump became president, did they really show their hand with censorship? I think now a lot of people are there. We know that jig is up, man. We know the deal. We know that y'all lean one way. We know that we can't trust you. We know that you're going to push one thing and you're going to suppress something else. Like most of us, we know this now.
Yeah, this brings us back to your point regarding education. Like
Yeah,
anyone being able to discern or have their own opinion wouldn't necessarily subscribe to social media when it comes to their opinions. Like
right.
I think there's a need to for people to actually be a bit more to have a bit more scrutiny when it comes to what they read.
Scrutiny
Like
is absolutely
we
skepticism.
could pass all these laws if we want. We could penalize Facebook. This is just for me, but it for me when it comes to free speech, it's hard to find a gray area for it.
Yeah, it's really a difficult thing to put your finger on because like, and I'm sure you've heard this before, and I know the viewers have probably heard this before too. We do have the freedom of speech, but it's also illegal to yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah, we have freedom of speech in a sense, but we also should be responsible in using it.
Yeah, well, when social media lowers the cost of causing problems, then you just have, there's people, man, that just like to stir the shit, and they will on social media. They won't stir it in real life because they get that ass tossed up. But on social media, yeah, they do whatever triggers the next person, or it's I don't know. I think the
That's
best thing
why.
to do is
Yeah, that's why I mentioned this because the bill actually also prohibits platforms from censoring, demonetizing content based on users' viewpoints. Like we're giving our viewpoints here. Like we're gonna be basing it on Google, which is known to be pretty much a liberal company.
they bury shit too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
We
amazing
know
the
that
different results you get
with
between Google and
algorithm.
DuckDuckGo.
We've been slapped a couple of times here.
And I'll go as far to say, and this is not a very popular opinion, but if you, and I'm speaking to uh, politics and mainly, no, this is for every country in the world. When it comes to politics, if you don't know the policies or um, you know the history of um, successful or failed policy by any politician, or what they want to do. Um, if you don't know these things, don't vote because you're just muddying up the waters for people that actually know and want to make a knowledgeable decision in something that's really, really important to not just you, but like your kids. So if you're doing it because I don't like him, so I'm voting for this guy, or he's too old, so I'm voting for this guy, don't fucking vote, man. Don't vote because you're fucking it up for everybody else.
Yeah, and I believe this bill is, at least for me, it's gonna be a slippery slope if it's actually gonna be passed because it's not gonna limit itself just for social media, right? Once
No.
you touch every angle when it comes to free speech, that leaves a little bit of wiggle room to actually make a few alterations.
Yeah.
Like it's not lost, I think, in the US. That's why you have amendments in your
Yeah.
constitution, right? So it leaves a bit of wiggle room for a few alterations to actually be made. And who knows whether those alterations would be for the better or for the worse. Like this is a slippery slope if it gets passed. Like for me right now, I just feel that the education of its audience like should be first at this point because Facebook, TikTok, uh, Twitter. I'm not calling it X. It's Twitter, by the way. So
Yeah. I haven't called it. Yeah, I don't call it X here.
it's dumb. Like they will forever be a giant billboard for advertisers.
Hmm,
You just need to learn that that's what's running the machine right now, and they could give two F's on how you guys are doing that day.
right.
So just a friendly reminder, like always be discerning when it comes to what you read online. Whether this bill is passed or not, that's just I think that's a sound advice. No one would go against that.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, kind of what to take out of this is yeah, basically educate yourself
Yeah, speaking of bill, the US still has another thing in Florida. Has that thing been resolved
with the
with
children's use of social media.
yeah, with DeSantis, right?
See, that's where they kind of lose me, man. Like I'm small government, man. I don't want the government telling me anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, tell me how fast I can drive. That's fine or whatever. But don't tell me how to raise my children, um, within the law. But it's your kids can't, the Facebook or the social media limitations for children. I don't think that's a government. I don't think that's the government's responsibility.
Yeah.
Same with, and I'll go as far as to say the same with abortion. I don't think it's the government's responsibility to tell you whether you can or not. So I agree with Roe v. Wade being overturned and sending it down to the state level because that gives people the ability to vote within their state. And if you don't agree, let's say abortion's legal and you're a super Christian and you hate it, fucking move, man. It goes the other way around. If you want to, if you want to go out every weekend and get knocked up and then murder your baby, do it. I don't give a shit, but do it in a state where it's legal. It shouldn't be legal all through the U.S. and it shouldn't be illegal all through the U.S. It should be small government, man. State. I mean, I go as far as to say county-wide would be fine with me. Get that shit all the way down.
I kind of feel right now that after this episode, the comment section would be a good case study for us to see whether people actually learn something from what we discussed.
Probably not. Like I say, goddamn, these dudes are all over the place. But I don't
I
know,
know.
man. It's an opinion. It's an opinion based podcast. I mean, we're not experts. We're not professionals. It's an opinion based podcast. It's just like abortion, man. If you don't like it, you don't have to stick around.
Yeah, and I like what your poster there says. I do want to believe that there are still decent people here that actually have a brain to actually understand what an opinion is,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that
It's just
actually discuss things without actually choking each other out like an MMA style one.
yeah, opinions and sometimes just conjecture. A lot of times, I don't even be thinking before I speak. So don't hold me accountable.
I think we would be having these type of discussions regarding this if it was just the networks having these biases and not having the amount of reach that the social media platforms have.
Dude, TV's struggling, man. I haven't watched real TV in years.
I think even cable is on the same boat, right?
Yeah, I
Because
mean, and it's so the biases at that right now, like these days, it's so blatant.
yeah, they're not
Like it's
even
not even covert.
like
It's it's just right in your face. Like if you
people
watch,
used to be particularly politicians used to be good with codes when they talk. Like now I feel like they think they can just get away with things. Like
I mean,
it over to the rest of the population. I feel like that's the reason.
if you just look at the southern border, just that alone, the way that it was covered from Obama to Trump to Biden,
Yeah.
just the coverage on CNN, like you just go back, what 9 years and look at when Obama was president. And then go back, 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when Trump was president, and watch a clip about the border on CNN. And now watch a clip about the border now that Biden, and you will see the absolute blatant, just in your face bias it's crazy. And they go on the next segment like they've always had this opinion. It's crazy to watch.
Don't you miss the days when porn was the only problem in the internet?
I miss something that I regret. My grandfather used to make me sit down and watch the news with him, like Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw and all that shit. And he would tell me like, you need to know what's going on in the world. And it was a much simpler time. You got your news from one dude every evening.
Is
You know what I
is
mean?
state news?
It was national, I guess. Dan Rather. No, Dan Rather was yeah,
Oh,
he was
Dan
like
Rather. Okay.
yeah, he was like dating. I don't know what he was, NBC, ABC, and maybe it was biased. Maybe I don't know,
But
but
it wasn't blatant back then.
ignorance is bliss, right? That was the news. That's what's happening in the world. This is all true, and let's go eat dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a very simple time. Now it's like this dude's a piece of shit. No, he's not. Yes, he is. This guy's great. This guy, it's just too much, man.
Yeah, you would have to think that. I think I made this argument before. Maybe this is just a generational thing when it comes to the sudden surfacing of biases, like the sudden sensitivity to it.
You know what? I feel like before Obama, nobody gave a shit who you voted for,
Yeah,
right?
that's why I think it's the age difference when it comes to these old politicians not actually giving enough or regarding these type of things, and it's only going to be the much younger ones that are actually subscribing to the notion of the biases that are actually pretty
So I,
visible.
I think there was a cultural shift, man. I think it went from who I vote for is my business. Don't ask me about don't ask, like it was almost taboo to ask someone who they voted for. Like you don't, that's personal. You don't ask people that.
And it's a
And
deadly
then when,
concoction, right? Like
yeah,
politics mixing it with revenue.
well, then when Obama became president, because he was so loved, like he was great when he was running, it was really exciting. Obama was the man. He's smooth, he's cool, he's good looking. It became kind of I don't know, like people want to be like, I voted for Obama. I voted for Obama. I voted for Obama. Like that changed where it's like, don't ask me who I voted for. Now all of a sudden, hey, I voted for Obama. That there was a shift where now it's like, I voted for Obama. Who did you vote for? And now people are like, well, I voted for Trump. And it's like, and now that whole secrecy thing, that private part of, your right to be, to cast a vote in secrecy, it's gone.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a generational thing because maybe this generation, in terms of the surfacing of social media, makes it easier for people to give you a pat on the back.
True. Very true. And
That
also nowadays, the left and the right are so polar, so opposite that I can look at someone and tell who they voted for. Like I know by the way your voice sounds who you voted for.
not even the left and the right now. In terms of the politics, like you can see in social media, the leanings of people. I remember the time when what is what is right now was the center
Yeah,
back
that's true.
then. So things completely went nuts. There was a time, I think back in the 2000s, when it was the polar opposite of things, where the left went to the center. I think this was back when Clinton was in office, right? Where I think Clinton was more of a centrist rather than a left wing Democrat.
Well, he did the crime bill, so that's not good. Put a
That's right.
lot of put a lot of people in jail for a very long time for very minor crimes. Kind of what started with the overpopulating of the prison system, and yeah, it was a big the 94 crime bill was a big mess.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're digressing a bit, but
Yeah, yeah.
leave more opinions in the comments, please. But like, going back to this bill, like, yeah, my final note on this is like it is a slippery slope once you start nitpicking something that should be universal. Like this is not an exclusive right per se in the US. Like every country has some form of this, right? Like even in my country, we have something like this. It's not even police yet. I believe people here know well enough to not say stupid shit.
Right. Of
I'm not on social media that much. I can't tell. There will be stupid people.
course.
I think 10 of them are born every 5 seconds.
Oh
So
God, please.
so I think this is really a slippery slope when you suddenly touch something that's pretty much universal when it comes to concept. Who knows, they might find a way, but at this point when people are so used to speaking their mind and companies are so used to weaponizing it and turning it into gold, it's gonna be a hard sell to suddenly up and change things,
True.
particularly imposing penalties. Then you're just gonna have to go to the other end of the aisle and tell them, oh, we're also gonna be looking at you.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll cover it. We'll cover it when it happens. We have to do a part two if this gets passed.
Yeah, we're really interested in the audience's opinions on this, and don't mind ours. We
Yeah.
do want to hear yours.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, to feel free to agree, disagree, whatever. This is I would say this is a safe space, but as you know, YouTube is also social media, so you're safe from us. I don't know about the rest of those people in the
Yeah,
comments.
in our mindset, you guys are safe, but we don't guarantee it from the others.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it is what it is, guys. So, Christian, are we good? We wrap it up.
Yeah, bring us home.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us, and at least listening, whether you agree or not. And yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back next time with some more interesting topics about technology. See y'all next time.